Congratulate you and congratulate ourselves to 10 years of the Livable Cities Conference. I think it's really a congratulations word because this is exactly what we want as WRI, a sustainable partnership, a long-term sustainable partnership. I have the honor to give a little bit of framing, but after the speeches that I just heard, a lot has been said already. But let me try to frame a little bit on what we're talking about today. Lots to do, as we heard. Cities, as we understood, are crucial. You can't resolve the climate crisis without cities. This is what we all know. And I see many familiar faces here in the audience, and you know what I'm talking about. With the majority of people and jobs, with the majority of activities in cities, cities are posing a big challenge, as we have just heard, but also the biggest opportunity to decarbonize at scale. We've seen a deep and growing inequality from the rural areas to the cities globally, but we also see that we have opportunities, big levers, like the buildings and the transportation areas to kind of decarbonize our cities at scale. Another thing that we heard in the other speeches is that cities are inextricably linked to nature. So cities are expected to grow, to triple in size until 2050, which eating out a lot of natural environment around the city. So as cities go, the world goes. We have approximately 5,000 cities. Maybe some say 10,000, we can have another conference on that. But around 5,000 cities. So how do we change these 5,000 cities for the better? And we heard a lot of good ideas already in the speeches of honorable mayors that see it in my talk. With WRI, we look at long-term engagement, deep engagement with cities, like this conference, to support cities, support stakeholders in cities for the longer term, because it's not an easy job. So we focus on transformative change. We focus on creating that first practice. I like the word first practice a lot, more than pilot. So how can we figure out the difficult stuff and demonstrate that it's actually possible, and then share among ourselves how to scale it and how to bring all sectors in to create as much as possible benefit. So we focus on a select amount of cities and then look at how we scale it among other cities with our partners. WRI, we are now at the moment that we're finalizing our strategy for the next 5 years, which goes to board the 28th of October. So many of my colleagues are very busy at the moment finalizing that strategy. That strategy looks at interconnected global goals. Our North Star around people, climate, and nature. People to meet the essential human needs. Climate to stick to the 1.5 degrees of the Paris Agreement. And nature. Only with healthy ecosystems we can sustain planetary well-being. So that's our North Star. This is not rocket science, but this is what we're looking at. So everything that we need, that we do needs to and will contribute to this. So what is then specifically for the city's vision is to provide high quality of life, equitable access to jobs and essential services for all residents, while cutting emissions and building resilience. And that is pretty difficult to do. We heard in the former speeches how much things you need to do and how challenging it is as a mayor and a city's institution to maneuver these competing tensions. There's a lot of competing tensions. So how can you do 4 of these things at the same time? That is the trick. In our own strategy for the Ross Center for Sustainable Cities, we look at 4 major impact areas. Livable neighborhoods to make the day-to-day lives of people better, create better urban space, better public space, greener public space. Sustainable energy, we heard it in these speeches already, the demand side of energy, the demand side of buildings, the electrification of transportation is high on the agenda. We heard it already, water resilience. Water is going to be the next humanitarian challenge across the world with cities at the center. How do we make sure that we can cope with too little, too much, and polluted water? How do we resolve that? And the 4th thing, and that is where we have a long body of knowledge and experience, is integrated mobility. How do we create a systems approach that includes public transportation, biking, walking in cities, and bring it all together, knit it all together. It's not only about the electrification of private vehicles. Now we have to think on transportation, access to jobs and services for all. So these are kind of our 4 major impact areas. Let me say something about people. Let me say something about nature, and let me say something about climate. I'm very happy that our flagship report, World Resources Report Towards an Equal City, is translated in Turkey. So thank you so much to the Turkish team, because here we provide 7 transformative ideas to bridge the gap. And the hypothesis of 6 years of research is that you can't achieve your goals if you don't close the urban services divide. If the city doesn't give its citizens the urban dividend that a city can bring, it's useless. So the World Resources Report gives you those 7 transformations, and I'm really happy that we can present this at this conference, the Turkish translation. Then on climate, and this is very familiar to many of you, but where actually does most of the carbon come from in a city? Most of it, 58% approximately across the board of all cities, from buildings. Then we have transport, we already heard it, material efficiency and waste. And we know how to resolve it. So with the current technology, we can decarbonize 90% up to 2050. So we don't need new technology, we need to act now. This is what we heard in the former speeches too. And if you invest in it, it's not only the moral right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do, because it will drive green jobs much better than investing in fossil fuel. Then on nature. So I've been trained as an architect and planner, and somehow we learned that cities are different from nature. I think this is a very damaging concept. So we see right now a movement, of cities that start to eliminate the juxtaposition between the city and between nature, to remarry them, because they provide you quality of life, they can better manage water, they provide you shade and reduce heat island effects. There's a huge amount of benefits of creating greener cities. And this is what we're talking today about. We have our Cities for Forest network, where we bring now up to 86 cities together to learn from each other, how you can actually drive green in your city, how you can invest in it, how you finance it, and especially organize peer-to-peer learning. Cities can best learn from other cities. And also the city of Mersin in Turkey is part of that network. So then how do we deliver on the city's transition? And we do that through strategic interventions. I already told you that first practice, figuring out the difficult stuff, strategic interventions in these kind of 3 areas of urban mobility, urban development, and urban efficiency and climate. And then capture the lessons and disseminate them through our platforms. And at the same time, support at the national level the policies that are needed to put cities at the center of the people, nature, and climate agenda. I give you a few examples. For example, the buildings efficiency work that we're also doing in Eskişehir here in Turkey, going deep with the city in how to transform the building sector. Exchange that knowledge through the Building Efficiency Accelerator, of which 59 cities are part of, again, that learning component. And at the same time, for example, like we do in Colombia, is influencing the national guidance in order to make sure that all the new buildings that are built from now on are up to par with building efficiency. Another example in Africa, where we brought a car-free day to Addis Ababa, learning from Mexico, learning from India, bringing it to Addis Ababa, while we share knowledge and data in a digital transport for Africa platform, and while we influence national and regional local policy. So this is how we drive change across these kind of 3 levers, and with that, supporting international policy making. So as I already said, that deep engagement, and this is why I'm so happy that we are here, and this is the 10th Livable Cities Conference, that deep engagement, that continued engagement with cities and stakeholders is where we think that we can make the biggest difference. And we do that with 25 cities, and through our regional and country offices, we drive that in-country transition. And we do that in Turkey. And a lot of great work has been happening over the last few years, where we have looked at road safety, where we looked at livable neighborhoods, where we looked at zero carbon buildings. But also the Turkey team, the Turkey office, supports a much broader effort, a global effort with their expertise, for example, in supporting cities in sub-Saharan Africa. We're talking today about green cities, and we're talking about finance. And I think the mayor of Kadıköy already said we need more. We need more investment, we need more finance. We need more finance in the areas that I'm talking about. But we also need to divert these kind of dangerous investments on the left to the more green investments on the right. And it's shocking to see that the next humanitarian challenge around water and cities requires only 1% of global GDP to create water security by 2030. And so let that sink in. And the other thing is that by investing in all the green efforts that we are talking about, as I already said, it's not the moral right thing, it's the smart thing to do because it offers jobs. And we did a lot of kind of investment in what it actually offers you. And it's here, this is a lot of numbers and a lot of graphs, but it shows you that efficiency, energy efficiency, urban transport, solar, recycling are simply among the biggest job creators. $1 million spent on buildings retrofit offers you 15 jobs. So it's a job machine, and I think that's very important to understand, especially for the leadership of the city. But we see challenges, we face challenges, and there's well-known investment barriers. We need novel business models. And one of the things that we definitely should do is to bring in the economic perspective much earlier in the business case. What does this investment mean for the long-term development opportunities of people in the city? And if you look at it like that, there is a much bigger opportunity in investing in green technology, green solutions, than in the old school stuff. There's an inherent risk, we're not naive. A lot of the innovation has not been tested and comes at a premium. So can we create a more standardized approach to innovation in order to lower transaction costs and to reduce the premium and to understand the risks? And we need to bring government and the private sector closer together. There's a lot of mistrust, but without the public authority, with all the bright people on the public space, we're not going to do it. It needs investment, it needs solutions from the private sector. Don't worry, I have 2-3 slides to go. Huh? I can continue for quite a long time, but 2-3 slides to go. So 2 examples of what are solutions in financing. Huh? And aggregation is a very important one. We tend to focus too much on that single project. But I heard the mayor of Kadıköy talking about, for example, incentives to have water ton and rainwater harvesting within the district of Kadıköy. These very small interventions can have a huge impact on your water cycle. Same counts for how you procure. So in India, we aggregated the demand from the 9 largest cities, and we procured 6,000 e-buses at once. And by doing that, we lowered the price of a bus by 30%, 30%. So you can change the marketplace and at the same time come up with much better specifications, not only for the buses, but also for the training program, also for the vehicle-to-grid integration, for example. And we're now currently, with the government, scaling that to 50,000 e-buses in India. And that is really making an impact. And this is why I talked about cities, but I also talked about in-country transition. This is why it's so important to scale innovative solutions at the national level across more cities. And I know how difficult that is. Huh? Depends where you are. I know how difficult it is. Last thing, I want to say something about setting up funds that address a specific solution. So with partners, and this is what we're going to launch at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, is develop a fund in sub-Saharan Africa that helps cities to scale water solutions in those cities, to make them much more water resilient. And as I said, a lot of the investment funds, a lot of financing looks at one specific thing. And that's very complex. If you're a bureaucrat within city authority, you have to understand where all these funds add up. So what we are doing with the Aqua Fund, we support cities in understanding what are their priorities and how we can match these priorities with existing funds, but also how we can invest in 5 major impact, low investment solutions. Again, rainwater harvesting. Again, nature-based solutions for wastewater treatment. Nature-based solutions for stormwater management. Non-revenue water. These are not very expensive things. And actually, if you look at the larger financial institutions, they tend to look at 50 to 100 million dollar investments per project. Aggregating innovative solutions and matching them with funds is a solution that we bring with the Aqua Fund. Then, let me end with a very positive note. It can be done. Huh? It can be done. We heard a very good examples from the mayor of Istanbul, from the mayor of Kadıköy. It can be done. We have our yearly prize for cities, which harvests 260 submissions every year of around 150 countries, 150 cities in 65 countries, showing that you can transform a city in 5 to 10 years. You can do it with consistent policy, with investment, and sustained energy with multiple partners. This year, you see the 5 finalists of this year, and the award will be awarded in an award ceremony at the end of this year. And why are we doing this prize? Again, because we think cities learn most from other cities and looking at what other cities have achieved. And it's also great, of course, to see that Eskişehir here was in the first cycle of the prize that is now growing into a global platform, a finalist. It can be done. Let's remember that. And I end with this cartoon. What if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? Well, I think we know what to do. Thank you very much. I wish you a very good conference. I want to thank Güneş for your leadership. I want to thank the WRI team for tireless efforts in supporting our partners in doing the good thing. Thank you very much.